Hello and welcome back to the Onlyaccies podcast, the Onlyaccies end of season review. And I mean, I think, Brandon, we're a bit like a lot of Accies fans, where just scunnered, completely and utterly scunnered by everything. I suppose that's where we'll start. The season is obviously over. It's about a week for us since our season was over, obviously, in the playoffs. How are you feeling as of recording? How are you feeling right now?
I feel this season, we've probably, obviously, since we started doing the podcast, etc., we've not done one in a very long time. Yeah. I think that just sums the season up pretty well, because the content probably hasn't been anywhere near what it should be and what it's capable of doing, which we've probably shown many a time. I think that's just due to the disconnect, how scunnered we are, and just how the season as a whole has been. There's not been much. There was obviously one moment in the season that gave us a lot to cheer about, and we'll remember that for the rest of our days. But apart from that, it's just been a absolute shit show of a season, both on and off the park, and ultimately ended in possibly the most scunnering way possible, which ultimately summed the season up as a whole for me. Yeah,
I mean, I completely agree. As you said, it got to a point in the season where I think for all of us, obviously yourself, me, David, took a lot to do anything but to do with the club. You know, I know a lot of people, fans, have stopped attending games and all that stuff, and us who are kind of prominent on social media, are more vocal on social media, I should say, like, it's hard, really, really hard to get invested and feel and try and put effort into the club when, I mean, let's be honest, we're getting blamed for stuff now. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're getting blamed for stuff going wrong. So we'll get into all that, I'm sure, later on. But at
least, like, we just need to be honest about a lot of things. Like, I think Accies fans very much themselves, when made to feel accountable, will always be accountable. Yep. I think when you flip that around, there's absolute very rarely any accountability on the other side of things. And I think people like to use the word honesty a lot, but there's certainly not a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the end of season review, so let's jump right back to the very start of the season now. Obviously, during the summer, let's start there before the series even started. We do an interview with Stan Taylor and planning ahead for next season, etc. Then becomes this really long-winded process of, is he the manager? Is he not? Is he staying? Is he going? And all this stuff. It eventually gets to the point where John Rankin is sacked. He's relieved of his duties. He leaves. But, what did I say?
John Rankin.
John Rankin.
No, that might be in the future. Who knows?
And obviously John Rankin steps into it. Now, we've talked about this a million times. We were happy with John Rankin getting appointed. We won't cover that again. But, I mean, start of the season there. I mean, I know you want to talk about pre-season in particular, how that set us up for the season. So why don't you start there with pre-season?
I know. Well, I think touching on the Stuart Taylor thing initially, it should have been an eye-opener for us, and I think we touched on it briefly throughout the season one of the podcasts, that probably set the tone of what was going to happen in the season ahead. Yep. An absolute shameful situation. Like, we then are told that, I don't know why it's taken so long for that. There's obviously been a lot of rumours flying about why it took so long. Obviously, there was posts about lawyers being involved, etc. So we're then told that, and I think the club were very much vocal about the reasons, which, according to them, he was sacked about is we finished sixth. It's not good enough. Not good enough.
Well, that's exactly what Alan Maitland said when he was in the studio. So 6 isn't good enough.
To them, and we'll touch on this obviously as the season review goes on, but it just makes zero sense. If finishing 6th after 7 years in the Premiership isn't good enough, and it's deemed that the performances weren't acceptable, then we've just got relegated in an even worse Championship than the season before, and we've not heard anything for the club again. We'll touch on this, but the first thing we've heard recently is John Rankin doing an interview saying that he's ready for the season ahead. So how does that make it justifiable? He's still in charge. It doesn't. Simple as that. And we'll touch on this in a bit more detail, but that summed the season up. The start of that summed the season up. We then go into pre-season. Obviously, John Rankin gets appointed. I think all the fans were more relieved at the fact that the absolute shit show of a long-winded fucking saga with Taylor was ended. We eventually got someone in charge. We're already about fucking 8 weeks behind other clubs who are preparing, etc. And then we got into pre-season games. Obviously, the pre-season, us fans never really tend to get a decent pre-season, let's be honest. We never, obviously, with the Betfred Cup in play now, that's essentially a pre-season in its own, as the club always tell us, because obviously cups still matter, apart from
the Cup.
Yeah, but we play against teams about 8 tiers below us. Obviously, a lot of people have spoke about, is that good preparation? Because we then went into the Betfred Cup and first result was an absolute doing from Dundee, who were in the league with us, and one of the teams we're apparently going to be fighting amongst. We saw how that went, and then
I mean, I think, sorry, just to interrupt you, but I think 45 minutes into the new season, I think that could have shown us what the season was going to be, where a fan is down at the sides, we're 3-0 down, and he's going, "What, guys? Show a wee bit of effort," and one of the players is getting it back 45 minutes into a new season.
Says it all, mate.
Like,
but the point I was just trying to touch on there with regards to pre-season or pre-season, whatever they want to call it, is that really? I don't know. Like, obviously, fans are wanting a good away day for a pre-season. I get that, but on a player side of things, surely you'd want to be testing yourself. You'd want to gain fitness. You're playing teams that are about 7 tiers below you, and again, we're doing the exact same this season. We just came out and confirmed. Well, sorry, we didn't come out and confirm we were playing.
Blantyre
Vicks came out with a much better social media presence than our club, which it just shows their priorities when it comes to football. And I'm sorry, it's an absolute shit show. It's a redneck, and I don't care how fucking out there this opinion seems, because it's no opinion. We're getting fucking absolutely tortured across social media about this, and again, we'll touch on this probably near the end of the review, but it's the fact that Blantyre Vic's a team that they're
you've got a really, really serious point actually about the pre-season, right? Because you're right. I seen Accies on Twitter put out saying that, you know, we're trying to repeat the very popular 2 games in a day. It was really popular because people went and get steaming and enjoyed 2 games of football. It wasn't popular because it was 2 good games, or we're really excited to see them. Like, it was popular because you get 2 football games in a day and you get pitched at both.
You got to
that was why it was popular.
On a football side of things,
the second game wasn't even an Accies 11. The second game was 14-year-olds.
People can get pushed going to the football, right? That's the popularity of it as a pre-season. That's not, but on a professional and serious football note, players going up against, no disrespect to players that I've used to actually play football with, which shows the standard that we're playing against.
Sunday league team.
It's just not a good way to set yourself up, and I don't want to seem like we're just complaining for the sake of complaining about stuff, but if I was
how much can that prepare you for a season?
If I was a professional footballer, I'd be wanting to actually prepare against higher standard players, and not just players that I'm not competing against. Well, we say that we'll see come the pre-season games if we compete against them, because I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get fucking beat. I
would love to actually sit with a professional footballer and ask about a situation like that, because I don't think there's any way they look at that as good preparation for a season.
And if I'm being honest with you, they don't. And although they won't be able to come out and say that to you, they know as much as us that it's a fucking shambles and a lot of times. But I'm not going to divulge into that too much.
But starting on the actual season itself, obviously with John Rankin in charge, it is fair to say there's a little bit of a buzz around John Rankin's appointment. We said it as well. We can't hide away from the fact that we were happy with his appointment. And the start of the season, I think it was it 8 games?
Obviously knocked out the cup.
Knocked out the cup. Start of the league season.
Put that down to poor preparation, hands behind his back because he came in so late on. Well, whose fucking fault was that? Everybody knew what was going on. So to you, again, it's an excuse. Everybody knew. People in the club knew what the story was, how the season was going to start. So they can't just use because the Taylor fucking saga went on for so long that they couldn't be prepared. They were prepared behind the scenes. We were told Rankin was in, blah, blah, blah. It was well known. I totally agree. I think we were buzzed about Rankin because when he came in as assistant, we saw a bit of a period where we had a kickstart. You hear him in interviews, speaks very well out with Accies. And the way he speaks, he tells you the type of team that he was wanting to play. And being the type of player he was, that's what we expected to see. So, of course, there was a buzzing throughout the season. We were probably one of the ones that tried to stick by him as long as 100%. Possible. But the season starts, we're knocked out of the Betfred Cup in a fairly easy group, which we thought we were in. How wrong would we? And then, obviously, the actual season starts, and can't remember how it went. I think we had... Although we didn't lose a lot, I think the first 6 games we won 1 and like drew 4 and
I think it was like 5 losses and 5 draws and a loss. Sorry, and I remember at the time we said something like, technically say that's unbeaten in 5. You know, that kind of talk. And but it got. I feel like it got to a point where we had an all right start to the season, and I remember us saying, see if we could just. Like
sign a striker.
If we could just sign a striker, if we just get that other goal, if we could hold off, if we could sit back a wee bit, not concede late, stuff like that could have been 4 wins. We were having this kind of chat, and I feel like we kind of got to a point where that kind of luck ran out, and it started being teams outscored us. We couldn't stop other teams scoring, and it got to a kind of horrible middle point where we were struggling to score and we were struggling to keep them out. And usually what happens, as I always find in football, was that balances out. We either become really high scorers and start outscoring people, or the opposite and we start conceding barrel loads. And I feel like we just sat in that middle, with the odd exception, of course, of big losses, which we'll talk about. But I feel like we sat in that middle ground of the only real goals were coming for Andy Ryan, and we really couldn't keep them at the back of the net. And all that ran up, I think, till basically January. But you were saying before we started, you were looking at just before Christmas. I mean, where we were sitting just before Christmas?
10 points adrift at Christmas, do you know what I mean? I think what you're saying there is, at the start of the season, we were obviously of that opinion, and we were giving Rankin the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time in comparison to other people. And it was because there was not much in a lot of games, but I think we were trying to use it. I think we were sort of blinded by the lights a bit, because we were sort of putting it down to, he's not got players in, he's wanted, he's been unlucky, we've only been beat by a goal here or there. There's not been much in the games, but then when you actually take a seat back and you realise it's a fucking honking championship, maybe if his subs were better in the games, and maybe if he showed a bit more attacking against these teams where there was only 1 goal in it or so, then we could have easily won. So I think the reason why at the start of the season we were very much pro was because how long the saga went on, and I think we were blinded a bit by the persona in which they oozes, and obviously we're going to speak about the season ahead at the end, but it's just hard to see where it comes back for us.
See, at that season. Point, 10 points adrift. See, at that point at Christmas, 10 points adrift. And I remember saying to folk, that's us really, I know we've still got half a season, but that's us relegated. We're not coming back for 10 points adrift, that's us done. And I remember as the season went on and we started to pick up points here and there, and obviously Cove dropped quite considerably as well. I remember thinking, even at the point where we leapfrogged Cove, I remember thinking, we're still going down. And I never had any faith from probably about December onward, when we were about 10 points adrift. I don't think I had any faith we're ever getting out of it. And I remember people saying, listen, if getting to the end of the season, I think Arbroath could drop down and all this. And I just kept saying, mate, Arbroath will get points. Arbroath will get wee draws. They'll get 1 each draws here. They'll get 0-0 draws there. They'll pick up points. I remember at a point looking at the season going, I don't see where we're getting a single point in the next few games. And I just kind of always felt for December, I feel like we were going down. We had a wee bit of an upturn, but even at that stage, I didn't see us really getting out of that situation. ultimately we didn't really.
I think when you mentioned about there being 10 points adrift at Christmas, that alone, in my opinion, and even though throughout sort of 2022 we were very much let's keep him, he's not get, who else are we going to get in sort of thing. We get pumped away to Morton, an absolute annihilation as well. That in its own right is a sackable event. And I'm sure we said that it was a sackable offence, but who else do we bring in? Blah, blah, blah. You then go up to Christmas, the Cove game, you're like, right, well, this is make or break. If he wins this, then give him a chance.
Yep.
If not, then it's fucked. And obviously we know what happens there then. Apparently there was a massive incident at Cove, according to a video which we'll touch on later, which I didn't think there was a big incident. I think it was fans just voicing their quite rightly displeasure at getting beat off on a team that's even worse than us.
In my opinion, just quickly on that Cove thing, in my opinion, if fans couldn't get behind the dugout of the team, that wouldn't have been seen as a big incident, because you'd have been in your selected stand. It's because Accies fans could make their way behind the dugout, so people did. And I think that's why they saw it as a bigger incident than it was.
Their opinion. They've not done anything out of tune. There's not been any abuse. Just being honest, there's not been any abuse. It's like, it just seems to be a narrative of no accountability, a false narrative, and a lot of lies as well, essentially, just getting made up just to paint people in bad pictures. And that's what's happened after Cove, when accountability should maybe be taken at the fact that we've went up there saying we should be getting a result. This might change our season. Then nope, we're going to Christmas 10 points adrift thanks to that. But again, it's the fans' fault.
I know. I mean, listen, we'll talk about fans' faults later on. But as I said, as the season kind of went on, and even when we were kind of slowly closing that gap and then leapfrogging, I never, ever, ever seen us getting out of a relegation. I think at one point I said in one of the videos, the best that I'm hoping for right now is playoffs. The playoffs was the best that I thought we were going to get, and ultimately I was right, but that's not the point. I didn't have faith in it, and as we keep saying, as much as I like John Rankin and he speaks really well, and as we keep saying, I just didn't have faith that he would be able to get us out of that situation. And as I said, ultimately we've been proven right. We've not got out of the situation. See, was there a point in the season, I don't want this to seem as if we're just, the whole season review is just fucking digging into John Rankin, right? But was there a point in the season where you really did think he's away, he's got to be away? Is there a single point where you thought that this has got to be it?
I think Morton, it deserves to be, but I was sort of on the fence, giving them benefit of the doubt. I don't know fucking why, if I'm being honest with you, but I was. I then thought at Cove, when we're 10 points as if it has to go. There's been a lot of speculation since then about Ian McCall, who's apparently offering his services, saying that he'd definitely keep us up. Would he have kept us up? I think with how the season panned out, he could have, yes. I think people are going to say, but he's been dealt a bad hand, he had his hands behind his back, blah, blah, blah. Regardless, with the players that he had, they were far more capable than where we were. The type of football was rotten. It was so negative. The subs that were made, there was a lot of periods where the Ala one, for example, when we were getting beat 1-0, and again we'll touch on this at the end of it, but just he seemed very stubborn in his ways. Tactically wasn't the best, apart from a period when we went in good results and they seemed to be getting it right then, but then reverted back, which I never understood. But it was just, the game management was just really poor. And he didn't use the players that he had at his disposal to their best of abilities, which is ultimately put us down. So there was several points in the season where he definitely deserved to go, and Well, I don't mind saying it now because I did actually really like him, and I'll touch on the point why I don't anymore. If I'm being honest with you, I think he's lost all trust of myself and majority of Accies fans. I don't think there's any that there can be any way back from now. He shouldn't have saw the full season regardless.
I would agree with you. I think at Christmas, 10 points adrift after the Cove game. I remember driving back from the Cove game thinking, I do not see a way that 10 points adrift in December that the manager stays. I could not see it for the life of me. And just to touch on your next point about hands tied behind his back and all that, like that may be the case behind the scenes with finances and signings and all this stuff. But as you said, see with the actual players he had in the park,
or didn't have in the park, like business,
or didn't have in the park. Those are capable players. Those are players that are better than what we were getting out of them. And as I said, his hands may have been tied behind his back with certain stuff, but seeing his hands aren't tied behind his back in the dugout. No time. Like, are you honestly telling me his hands tied behind his back with he's starting 11 and with the subs he's making and with the formations he's using? Like, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not the case. We have better players than that. Dario Zanata as a championship. I'm not going to go through them all, but Dario Zanata as a championship player. Dylan McGowan as a championship, arguably a bottom half Premiership player. Regan Tumulty, Dan O'Reilly, Scott Martin. These are all players.
There's plenty of players that you've not mentioned.
Aye, but these are all players that are capable of better than what we have, and that's what frustrates me. Is I understand and I can empathise with them. That it's a difficult situation behind the scenes, which, let's be honest, we know it is. But on the pitch and all that, could have been 100 times better. And keeping him in December was a shock to me. It really, really was a shock. I mean a big thing that happened in January, which we can move on to now. The sale of Andy Ryan, the sale of Chucky. Which
I'm sure at the end of this we'll talk about this players we signed and sold. When we should do this, but I think that's a very key talking point. The fact that I think a lot of fans were pretty much saying throughout the season, well, we're not scoring a lot of goals because, excuse me,
bless you.
Thank you. The only player that we've got is Andy Ryan. He was injured for a bit, so we went into the season.
He was also playing injured as well.
When are we going to sign a striker? When are we going to sign a striker? We're told we're going to sign a striker, blah, blah, blah. And then to actually go into January and sell the only person that's looked threatening to actually score as a goal in the way in which John Rankin had us set up and was playing, but we're told he was never going to sign a new deal, so we thought it was more financially viable. Just absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. If all you're caring about is bringing in a quick cheap buck, it goes back to the old saying that we use constantly time you need to speculate to accumulate. That wasn't even speculating. That was just
don't sell your player.
Don't sell your player, because ultimately, if it goes tits up and you get relegated, look how red in the face you're going to look, and look how much money you're actually going to lose out on just for the sake of bringing in a quick $3,000.
And that's what it comes down to, is would you rather make $5,000 on Andy Ryan in January and get relegated, or keep Andy Ryan, lose him for free in the summer, but you stay in the Championship? It's a pretty easy decision.
You don't lose a generator of income of God knows how much.
Aye, it's a pretty easy decision.
Look at obviously the gate receipts next season is going to be night and day. You'd had a Dundee United there fucking twice
potentially
Ross County potentially, all the other teams that still bring a fairly decent support now. Look what you're going to get, fucking 16 Edinburgh City fans coming through. It's your own fault, simple as that. And to be fair, it's quite funny because for once in our fucking life, we're actually going to be one of the teams that's got the bigger supports in the league. And actually, I say that, it might not be the case the way in which the non-existent football club is, and we probably won't have that bigger support just because nobody can be asked, because they clearly can't be asked. But no, in all seriousness, it's their own fault for selling Ryan. It was just such a silly move, and it's ultimately came to bite his back in the arse.
Well, let's look at coming to the end of the season now, right? So we'll skip over the Challenge Cup because
I think we should maybe mention January, because we've been very critical, and quite rightly so.
Okay.
But we obviously did go through that period in January where we went on a wee bit of run, and that gave us that false hope that we always seem to have. We obviously went through, we beat Ross County in the Cup, we beat another few teams in the league. Again, wasn't the best of performances, but we managed to get it over the line. And that ultimately gave us a bit of hope going into sort of the end of the season, but we sort of got our hopes up for fuck all, clearly.
As I said, it kind of ties back to what I said earlier on. Even during that positive run, I remember going to, was it Partick Thistle away, and we were in that period of closing the gap, and people were talking about, this could be us getting out of this situation. And I remember saying in the video, I don't care what MD says right now, I still don't see us getting out of this situation. We were so behind everybody else that it was that we were, if it was 5 points adrift at Christmas, I could maybe see it, but 10 points adrift at Christmas, I just couldn't see our way back. So even during that positive run, as much as I enjoyed it and all that, and it was great, I didn't see us getting out of that situation. We'll tie it back into the January signings later on when we talk about kind of our season as a whole, but moving into that latter half of the season, we win the Challenge Cup, fantastic, best day out. We've done a whole podcast on that. If you want to listen to it, you can go and share immediate thoughts afterwards.
It was, I think we'll touch on that sort of at the end a bit more, but that was without shadow of doubt, and that's probably one of the very, very small positives of that season. That was probably the best day / night.
Yep.
I support Accies in my life.
We said at the time, best we've experienced in a long, long time, and hopefully, and I remember saying this, hopefully all this can do is galvanise the team into the second half of the season. I could not have been more fucking wrong.
And one of my pals pretty much says that I think this will be the worst thing that could actually happen to us in this season, and he was completely spot on, man. And it was just, obviously, players going a bit of a bender, clearly.
Yep, 100%.
And to be honest with you, I don't blame the players on that. Like probably one of the only ever times that they're going to have, don't want to be cheeky to them, but they won't see a lot of like cup success or silverware in their career. Maybe I'm wrong, and I really hope I'm wrong for them. But they've then went and celebrated, but it's not up to them to keep them in line. Do you know what I mean? If shouldn't it, they've got a manager, they've got people that, if I went in a bender, my employer would be straight at me telling me, right, what the fuck you doing is your P45, do you know what I mean? So they're entitled to do what they're told to do. So if they've been said, right, go and enjoy yourself, have the Monday off, come in.
Yep.
But clearly nobody's told them that, and then we then go and see the aftermath, because I know how I would play if I was fucking hungover to fuck. I'd probably get pumped fucking more than 7-0, and that's clearly what's fucking happened.
We'll see the celebrations, right? I think I said this at the time, right? So win the game, and then we've got a game on the Saturday against Dundee, right? Monday, I can understand. We sore head Monday. So I'm not feeling it today. I'll do a wee half intensity training, right? Football manager talk coming up. Tuesday, and you're taking the piss a wee bit on Tuesday. Wednesday is fucking ridiculous on a Wednesday. That is fucking mental. And then to go and play on the Saturday, right? Play shite. And then afterwards he goes, he's not been feeling great. I fucking wonder why he's not been feeling great. He was tanning venoms before the game. No wonder he wasn't feeling great. Do you know what I mean? Like,
he threw certain people under the bus there, like with the not feeling great. And see that just shows the media savviness of them as well. That they should have people to toe the line of when they are going to speak to the media, because it's the same repeated jargon over and over again. And there does seem to be a narrative sometimes when things don't go right to throw certain people under the bus and certain players, which I don't think is acceptable. And again, that ties down to the zero accountability, in my opinion. It'd be different if they had a media person. Maybe it wouldn't. Just an absolute whirlwind the emotions that week for going for winning the cup, having the best day and night of our life, to then Scotland obviously doing that, and then going to Dundee and being brought back down to fucking planet Earth with an absolute pumping, and then going back to that pumping at the end of the season. If we didn't get pumped that amount, and we were going into the final day of the season with a very good chance of staying up automatically. So yes, thanks for getting on it for 3 days, and thanks for their bosses not keeping them in line.
See, just on that final day, obviously going up to Arbroath, and it was a case of we need to win and hope Cove don't, to avoid the automatic relegation. I think no matter what happened, we were in there obviously getting, because I think we had to win by like 8 goals or something like that, right? Something ridiculous. See, during that game, Was there a point that you thought, this is it, we're automatically getting relegated? Was there a point where you thought, like, this is it, the season is officially over?
But at Arbroath?
Yeah.
Aye, when obviously news was filtering through that Morton were doing the 10 men.
Aye.
I was certain. Then you watched that game and it was just two teams, in my opinion. Again, it showed sort of the balls of the management staff, should we say, that the fact that they were just happy to pass the ball about. Both teams were happy with that. They were happy with a 0-0.
Aye.
Even though when it's not in our hands, we were happy going with a 0-0 in the hope that
they
the
were
result went
confident
away.
that Morton would beat Cove.
Even when they knew in the
Can't
first
hang
half
your
they had
hat on
10
that.
men, but that just shows, in my opinion, even though there has to be apparently a change of mentality, that shows the mentality that we're going into that game happy with a point, taking it into going into a playoff position. It's just absolute shitbag mentality. Pardon my fucking not.
By the way,
my French.
Just on it, Brian Rice, change of mentality. Stuart Taylor, change of mentality. John Rankin, change of mentality. How many fucking changes of mentality do we need?
Well, they might say there's a change of mentality. There needs to be a change of mentality, and that usually starts for the core, and that starts for the top down the way. Everything's been the same throughout the full place. Internally, it's all been the same. I think you just need to read all the comments on social media about when this, and again, we'll touch on this at the end, when we're talking about a change of ownership, needing to take place, that if that happens, that I sort of the fucking
mate,
we're touching this, and if that did happen, that the only way to galvanise everyone together is to have a complete sort of change from bottom to top sort of thing, and get rid of all the toxicity, which is quite clearly embedded in the club, and that goes back to the whole change of mentality. Regardless of, there has to be a change. If 3 managers are saying it, when was the last time we had, as a supporter, when was the last time we had any type of football that we could be off our seat from? Like, obviously, we're going to touch in the playoffs in Airdrie. Like, but you've got that Rhys McCabe or whatever. He's in League One, new manager. Comes out and scores 90 goals or something.
The team finished third highest scorers in Scotland, only beaten by the Old Firm
by like 78 league goals, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that's free flowing attacking football, playing against teams that you're saying, right, they're not even that good. We ourselves might not be that good, but just go and play football, go and enjoy yourself, go and attack people, and you'll reap the rewards like they clearly have. That it came out in what was it he said that on the other podcast that you do, that that whole mentality, what was it he said? He said something about a manager saying something. He says that's just shit.
He said he was a guest on A Pint and Two Shots, and he said that a manager saying played shite but get 3 points. He said that's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard.
It's absolute nonsense. But you cannot tell me that there will be very limited footballers out there that will be happy to just go out there, play absolute anti-football, hoofball, negative. People want to be playing and watching nice football, free-flowing football, if possible, if you've got the players to do it. Now, I don't see a John Rankin team doing that, and and we'll touch on it next. We'll touch on it next week on the next part, talking about the season ahead. But if Airdrie can quite clearly show that they're capable of doing it, why with the players that we've got at our disposal, and we did last season in a fucking rotten league, why were we not playing sort of more fluent football, if you want to call it that? Why is the mentality play this negative counter attack and just ugly on eye football? When has an Accies team had that? Not had that for a long period of time. I can't remember. See,
just on Rhys McCabe, I walked out of that Rhys McCabe interview and I said I would not mind him as Accies manager. I would take that. Now, I was wary of that he speaks very well, because that's what we said about John Rankin, right? But I don't know, man. It was just obviously seeing his team play and the type of football that they do play. The way he spoke, the way he talked about dealing with players and dealing with the club and dealing with the fans. I remember walking out that, and I remember saying to my boss at the time, I went, I tell you what, I would not mind Rhys McCabe at Accies. It would be loads of question marks, obviously, but in terms of his profile, I felt that fit. This is irrelevant, but I felt that fit Accies really well. A young up and coming manager who needs a chance. And anyway, but
when he's not, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be a yes man.
Yeah, but he also would not come to Accies. Yeah. I think that was quite clear. What he actually said was really interesting. Actually, he said we filmed it just before the Falkirk game, and he said that whoever wins at Falkirk and Adrian will win the playoff. He went, I'm confident whoever. So that just shows you that Adrian and Falkirk were looking up at us and going, if we can get through, them,
they play shite.
If we can get through them, we'll take Accies. And that's what he did.
And I think touching on how he deals with players comment that you've made there, and a lot of people made the argument sort of throughout this season, I don't know what your opinion is that a lot of people thought that the players just saw Rankin as a mate rather than as a manager, because that's why when you apparently spoke to players etc, they says they couldn't speak better of him and they really wanted to do well. But is that more so because he was just like one of them rather than having a sort of authority? Or
so I was obviously only in at the club for a limited amount of time, right?
Why was that?
And I saw about skip over that. I saw about I think 4 or 5 training sessions, kind of in depth, and there was a little. I feel like there was a little bit of that, but I can't say I agree, because I do think he told that line of, "I'm the boss, you have to respect me and do what you're told," but also, like, it needs to be a positive environment. So one example I can give, and it didn't make the cut of the video I made, was John Rankin ripping through the players. He wasn't happy with the intensity, I think it was, and he just ripped fucking through them for about 5 minutes, talking about, if you don't train how you play, then you'll fucking lose on Saturday and all this stuff, right? And I thought it was a really interesting insight. So I don't know if I agree with that. I do think all the players really respect him, and I do think all the players really like him. Does that mean that they think he's a great manager? Maybe not, but I do know that they think he's a really good coach, and that's what he might be. He might be a really, really good coach, but he might not be a manager.
We spoke about that many a time. I just think his stubbornness and what seems to be very inept tactics just sums up the management. In my opinion, that's what it is, and that seems to be the sort of general consensus of fans. And talking about obviously having Eden McCall coming in, I think change was quite clearly needed, and we felt, I think everybody would agree that we should have changed our manager. It doesn't look like it's happening because the articles came out, but to go from saying the manager that finished 6th wasn't good enough to then having a manager that's relegated is good enough, and just nothing said about it is just mental. I think the board need to come out and sort of clarify everything, etc. But the thing, obviously, over the course of the season, me and you were probably one of the only ones that were backing of Rankin for the vast majority. Obviously, it changed as it went on because it was clearly we needed to make a change or else we were doomed, which we were right about. But the thing that just sort of was the icing on the cake and sort of has made it near on impossible, if not impossible, for Rankin to lose it, to bring back any credibility, was the end of the season when that sort of incident happened with a comment on social media. We've then just beat Alloa, going into the final, sort of needing to have a bit of confidence. Everyone should sort of come together, sort of with hopefully forgetting about the incident that happened at the stadium, which was quite rightly deserved to happen. For him to say, not speak about the game really in truth about the game, but to say that he heard shouts about his wife and his kids. Now, that's lies. I don't care what anybody says, and me and you both know it's a lie. It happened on social media, right? We all saw it. The fan that said it was tortured that much that he deleted his social media. It was a fake account. Yep. Everyone thinks it was disgusting. The comment is no way, shape or form acceptable. Yep. But to come out and say you just heard it getting shouted at you just so that you can paint us Accies fans or paint Accies fan in a picture is just, no. What is the need for that? Like, we've just won a game. Why are you making up lies about hearing shouts? And to me, that loses any credibility that I had from him. It's just the making up lies to paint people a picture. I just think there's no need to lie. We're always going about honesty. We're always going about, again, accountability. We don't go on about accountability. We're going about honesty. There's no need to lie. And when you lie, the truth gets found out, and he's lied, and there was no need for that. So that's lost my credibility for him, and it just it's frustrating because I think he's a really good. He is a really guy. He speaks very well. I thought the type of football he was going to play was going to be of a certain standard, and I just hope if that's who we've got next season, he maybe changes his mentality and maybe comes out and speaks to the fans, and maybe, I don't know, but just how it is just now, I just don't see, after what's happened the past season and being relegated type of football we've witnessed, I just don't see there any way back.
I just want to quickly touch on that tweet that did go out. Was absolutely disgusting, disgraceful. The fan that I've been told personally is about 14 years old. I think you're disgusting. Quite happy to say I DM'd this account after the tweet went out, and just told him that. Said he was fucking disgusting. Said you need to apologise to John Rankin.
The reason I'm laughing it's just because the comments that he responded back to
his replies were obviously that of a wee boy, and that's what I told him. I said,
did they not call you like a?
I'll get to that. He said, it turns out basically what had happened was the night that this tweet had been sent, and he started to get loads of hate on it, rightly so. He DM'd me, and basically because I'd replied to it, he DM'd me basically and was like, mate, like come on, I'm just like, obviously I'm not going to do that. I was just angry and all that. So I've seen this DM a few days later, and I basically replied to him saying, mate, you are fucking disgusting, man. You're painting all Accies fans in a bad light. Hold your hands up and apologise. Not behind a wee secret account. Come out and hold your hands up. And basically what I was told was, well, I'd get banned, so I'm not doing that. Then when I said obviously you're just a wee boy, I was a wee midget and he was going to batter me. He's yet to come say hi to me.
To be fair, and one of it's sick and it was horrible, and it was that of a wee guy. It's this type of thing that you used to hear when you were playing the PlayStation in Call of Duty and you had your headset. It's that type of mentality. So it's a wee guy. But what that's then gave the club ammo to do is then target and tarnish the 100%. Fans with, and that's again always all the fans' fault.
100%. Even every single Accies fan called that shit out. Every Accies fan who replied to it called it disgusting.
But then for it to be posted in a video saying that fans were saying this in the game, and for the
I certainly didn't hear
it. It's lies. But again, nobody condones that sort of shit. Nobody finds it acceptable. If we all knew who it was, or we knew who it was, we would make sure they were trying to be held accountability, and that's what everyone's been trying to do. But again, not on, and yeah, frustrating.
We'll make this the last comment on the management because there's loads of stuff we need to cover, including next season. But just quickly on the management team, I think, here's a question I can throw to you. Do you think we would have performed better, and John Rankin would have performed better if he had an experienced assistant behind him?
Listen, I don't know, because it's hindsight, innit? Mm-hmm. I think having someone experienced that's been in the game a long time, that's maybe been a manager themselves, maybe be able to help them with the tactics a bit more. Yes, 100%. Obviously, we've got someone in who definitely has fire in his belly, but again, very inexperienced when it comes to sort of management and coaching, I suppose, if you want to call it that. Well, I say inexperienced coaching, he done stuff with the 18s does, so can't really criticise him there. But
in my opinion, as a motivator,
I think that comparison's been made with Dougie Imrie at Morton and Andy Millen, who's obviously been sort of a guy in the game for a very long period of time, had a lot of coaching roles throughout his years, and there's been talk about him being maybe more so the tactics sort of guy, which I completely understand. So to answer your question, I think maybe we brought someone in that was experienced to assist Rankin, would have definitely saw more benefit than what we have so far, which seems to have unfortunately tarnished Daz's reputation, unfortunately, with quite a lot of Accies fans.
Now going into the playoffs now, so finished second bottom, we're going into the playoffs, and it's Alloa. What was your initial thoughts?
At Alloa?
Yep.
£1.50 a cheeseburger. Fucking brilliant, man.
Rolling pie.
Aye, a rolling pie.
What a day.
So I think that's one good thing that we can look forward to is a rolling fucking kebab pie and shit like that. Or I can't remember what it's called, a Wigan pie. I can't remember.
I think Peterborough was saying it's a Wigan pie or something like that. He was
Anyway,
calling it.
You go into that game, we're set up in the way in which we are. Zanata and Winter up front just didn't understand having Zanata as a forward/striker at all. When you've got those players on the bench, I just really don't understand. You've got far more attacking players. We go into that game, absolute nothing in the game whatsoever. Both teams absolute dire. I think there was 2 shots the full game between both teams, and throughout the full game, you could just see how it was going to go. And you've got Connor Salmon terrorising you, man. It just sums it up, man. And ultimately, Alloa got the win, and it's just an absolute honking game of football, which could have been far. Didn't need to happen if we actually set up and played in a different style. I had no doubts that we'd have been able to dispose of them in the first leg with ease. The thing that summed the full day up for me and the night up for me was the fact that we waited to the 86th minute to bring on an attacking sub, which that shows the ineptitude of in-game management from Rankin, I think, in my opinion.
I'll say this quickly because I said it, I think, in the video as well, but of the game, the first leg was, I don't think Regan Mimno was necessarily playing poorly at left back, right? But see, if you're playing Regan Mimno at left back, you cannot expect the ball to go down the channels because he's not going to beat a man. He's not get a huge amount of pace. So fair enough. I thought he was all right at left back. I don't think he necessarily did anything poorly. But then you can't try and put everything down the wings. You can't do that. And
then the fact to take, again, that's another point that you've brought to my attention there. The fact that you're your first sub when you're 1-0 down. Oh, honest to God. Just thinking back, and it was just making me, because I went through a period there for the past 10 days because Accies haven't been posting anything, where I've just been
seen bliss in it.
Been bliss, mate, to a degree. Even though when you go back to, when you think back at it, and you're in the League One, Wes. But fucking, you're getting beat 1-0 away to Alloa, a team that have threatened you 0, team that are absolutely rotten. They've just done their full-time jobs before coming out. And your first sub in your mind is not to bring an attacker, not to have a go at them. It's to bring Regan Tumilty, who's quite clearly, he's a full-back / wing-back, but one of our most 100%. Influential players going forward, which shows the lack of players that he uses attacking-wise, to bring him off for Steve Lawson.
100%.
It's just a shit show. But anyway, we'll lose the game 1-0. We'll then go into the second leg, start that off, which... game starts off horrendous. You're getting beat 2-0 off 10 men Alloa. Obviously, fans go and display voice their displeasure, quite rightly so. I'm sure we'll talk on that in a bit more detail at the end. Fans were quite rightly in doing so, in my opinion, because they hadn't had the opportunity to do so all season. There'd been no communication either way, really, for the most part of the season, despite apart from the start. And that seemed to actually maybe put a bit of fire in the players' belly with that happening, and ultimately we then turn the game around and pump Alloa, which I think could have easily been the case with 11 men, should we have set up in the correct way, and we actually had a bit of a mentality that let's just go and attack this team from the start, rather than having that negative shite football which we're accustomed to every single week.
I think just on the fan protest, I said this at the time, I said, quite right, to sound like an old man, quite right, because you're 2-0 down, 3-0 on aggregate,
about to get relegated, and the team's not really showing anything that shows that we're going to threaten this side. But put that aside, the game aside, the actual running of the club, fans are fucking quite right to go and do that. Nobody fucking tried to storm the hanging bat at MD. No, there was there was hate crimes.
They were they were standing down there chanting, "Get out our club." get to fuck and all this, right? Stuff you would hear a million times at any game in any country. Fuck me, man. And
Accies are so different though. We're that special that no other football club relies on sponsorship money. Mate. No other football club gets feedback when they're not doing well. It's but anyway, quite right. They've done so. It's gave the players a bit of fire in the belly. We hadn't scored from open play in about 13 games.
Yep.
Which
that's another important point.
Absolute redneck. Yep. And the players have obviously heard that, thought, you know what, fuck this, went for it, just actually attacked a team for a change, maybe not listen to the fucking manager and his negative connotations, and we then come out victorious and deservedly so at the end with Andy Winter getting a hat-trick. So
a very good hat-trick actually
as well, yeah.
I mean, I remember, as I said, I remember leaving that game. In fact, I'll tell a lie. Before the game, I remember saying to people, actually, a wee 1-0 loss here, have the season be fucking over, because I know we're going to go and we're going to lose in 2 legs to Airdrie, and the hope will fucking rip me apart, man. And I remember saying, I just want the season over. And there was a point I remember within those 2 Alloa games where I thought, I wish we'd have just finished bottom and just went straight down, because I can't deal with this anymore, man. Mm-hmm. Totally and utterly fucking scunnered, man. That'll be a client messaging me because I'm in downstairs. Totally and utterly scunnered. And I remember thinking, I just want the season over with. I want it fucking done. And I was buzzing we won the game, obviously. It was an interesting game to watch. But I remember then walking away going, now we need to fucking go play Airdrie over 2 legs and probably lose.
Probably get absolutely pumped in.
Well, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting to go to Airdrie. And I remember saying to people in the stand at Airdrie, I remember saying, if we can walk away here with a wee 1-0 loss, by the way, I wouldn't mind that, because that takes the game back to Newlands Park.
But that just shows the fucking mentality that's now 100%. Been installed in us, because the things that we've had to watch through the season before, obviously, when in the Alloa game, in the first leg as well, when you're seeing that Falkirk were getting pumped, what was it, 5-0 in the first half? You're obviously saying that at the Airdrie game, but we're at the Alloa first leg game, and you're seeing that Airdrie are winning 5-0, so you're like, I just put us out of misery now, because we're going to go and we've just been beat off Alloa 1-0. Let's just get beat this second leg, because I can't really take Airdrie fucking pumpness. And that just shows the mentality that has been instilled through us and through everyone. The club coming out before it as well and saying that we're the underdogs. We've been in the top flight for fucking 7 years out of the past 10, and we're saying that the underdogs to a team that has been in League One for God knows, and we'll probably get this clipped by Airdrie fans back in the gear. Fuck, they think they're Billy Big Bollocks now, and I think they're the big time because they've just been promoted to the Championship for the first time in about 20 years. So clip that all you want and call me whatever you want. Fucking horrible club. But anyway, so we go into the first leg, and I were there, and not a lot in the game at all.
No, not at all.
2 mistakes is essentially got us a 1-0 defeat. But I think if we manage the game a bit better, make certain subs, or maybe don't make certain subs, again, Tumley coming off, don't understand that, but we manage the game better, we ultimately win that. But he seems to have his favourites and the same persistent subs which he likes to make, or people that start, which again is caused us to be where we are, and that's the frustrating part. And we obviously lose 1-0 again. Callum Smith, who, when Accies fans were sort of shouting certain things, I knew it would bite them, and that bite us in the arse, and it did. Well,
I remember getting told by an unnamed source, a barber, that Callum Smith really, really likes Accies, and he would jump at the chance to come back. And then when he went and scored and came over and shushed the Accies fans, I texted him and said, well, you know fucking nothing.
Well, to be fair, if you're getting abuse, getting called an Accies reject, blah, blah,
I don't blame him, mate. I don't blame him for doing it. I don't blame him for doing it whatsoever. But as you said, it's 2 mistakes ultimately that lead to the goal. And I remember walking out of it. First of all, quick funny story. Walking round, have to walk by the Accies buses. Lewis is sitting in the back seat, and Lewis gives me the wanker sign as I go by. So I'm like, fuck off, Lewis. And the wee guy in front of Lewis, he's like, fuck you, man. I was thinking I'm an Airdrie fan. He's like, fuck you, man. I was like, what are you talking to? So walking out of that, as you said, nothing really in the team's And as I said before the game, a wee 1-0 loss, I thought, we can still turn this round. Do you know what I mean? Especially after that game, I thought, Airdrie didn't look like ripping us apart really any point during that game. Then we go into the Airdrie game and our going by the end of the season with Regan Mimnott, our backup left back's playing as a striker. Explain that one to me, Brandon. Break that one down for me, mate. Brandon Coghill masterclass. Why is Shields starting up top?
John Rankin masterclass. Fucking Matthew Shields up front when you've got a Newcastle striker that's barely had a fucking sniff in all season apart from one game where he scored a goal. I don't know, mate. Like, we didn't play two up top for the vast majority of the season. He says that we weren't capable of doing it, and he then goes and does that against Airdrie just out of nowhere. Fucking, yep. I don't know, mate. My mind boggles with some of the decisions he makes throughout the season, and I don't want to touch on this game too much because obviously the way in which it finished was the worst possible way. I just want to say, by the way, just quickly on it, because if we don't want to hang on it too much, Dan O'Reilly, we did not get relegated because you missed a penalty. No,
we get relegated long before that, mate.
100%, and I don't think anyone would blame Dan O'Reilly for getting relegated, especially the fact that he was our top goal scorer.
Well, funny you say that. If Dan O'Reilly hadn't scored those 2 goals in one game, Andy Ryan would have finished our top goal scorer after leaving in January. Scary.
No, but the fact that centre back's our top goal scorer is scary in its own. Of course it is. We've said for about 8 years we need a striker and still not had it, but we're constantly told we'll get one, but we'll see. But anyway, the game happens. We give ourselves that false bit of belief. We deserved to win the game as in 90 minutes. We deserved to win the game 90 minutes over the course of the full ties. I'm not going to say we deserved to win because I don't know if we did, and I'm trying to be asked with Airdrie fans clapping and saying, I cry some more. I'm not crying, I couldn't give a fuck unlike yous. But it's the fact that we're 2-0 up, not learned fair mistakes with previous games which ultimately saw us relegated. We were in the lead against Partick, we were in the lead against Inverness, kept those victories in, we stay up, don't manage the game at all, we get beat both those games, we're then into the playoff final, we're 81st minute, we're winning. Who's his first sub? Dario Zanata to see out a game. Now that in its own's a sackable offence. It is, mate. Like, and that's nothing bad about Dario Zanata, and like people have their opinions about him that he's not good enough, blah blah blah. I'm not getting into a conversation about Dario Zanata as a player. You've got 9 minutes left to save your season. When you're in a leading point, and your first thing in your mind is, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take Lewis Smith off, who's probably blown out his arse.
And by the way, had a really good game, by the way.
One of his best all season, if not his best, for another winger that is quite renowned for not having the most effort.
Yep.
When you've got defenders on the bench, you've got defensive midfielders on the bench, and that's your sub. Game management is not his forte, and he clearly needs someone in if he's going to be our manager now to fucking make him more tactically wise, because one of the main reasons we got, and probably the main reason we ultimately get relegated, and we'll finish this on the season and talk about getting relegated, was the tactics, the game management, and negative football. Simple as that.